my name is Margot Stluka. I graduated in 2009. It's absolutely crazy to be up here. I feel like I was just sitting in your seats, and I know 24 seems really old, but let's pretend it's not, just for this. Although I recognize that I am by no means the authority on being a grown-up or implementing service into my daily life, I have learned a lot. And I have to thank St. Luke's first and foremost for instilling in me the desire and passion to keep learning and becoming who I am today and who I plan to be in the future. So, the point of the talk today is to share the moment I realized that I wanted to make service a part of my life. And honestly, as corny as it sounds, it started at St. Luke's. It is here that I learned that volunteering and dedicating time to another person should be ingrained in our daily lives. And I want to say here that service is by no means selfless. It feels good to help. It's super addictive, and once you catch that bug, you can't quit. In order to be a leader or somebody who wants to ingrain service into their daily lives, you need to know who you are first. You must be aware of your beliefs, unsugar-coated and completely unabridged. In order to do that, it takes a lot of soul-searching and a lot of introspective time, which you don't realize you need sometimes. And the minute you do find yourself, or at least think you do, then you're able to give a little piece of yourself to every single person that you meet. So you still have to do those hours every year, right, to graduate? How many is it? 180 or 80? 80? All right, it's the same. They haven't messed you up, don't worry. It's what I had to do, and I'll be honest with you, I hated those hours. They were awful. They had to get approved. You had to organize them over and over. But by the time it came to senior year, it was habit. It was something you knew and something you got used to. Taking the time out of a nice weekend to take the day to clean up a park with Mr. Havens or go to the Carver Center, it didn't seem so crazy. It seemed like the right thing to do, the right way to be a member of the St. Luke's community. And again, half of the stuff I'm going to say today sounds so corny, but just roll with it and laugh when you're supposed to, okay? So I can still remember the nights with Mrs. DeMarco at the midnight run handing out clothes in Manhattan and going with groups of friends who visit homes for Meals on Wheels. The best part was you got to do it with your friends. It's kind of like social service. You did it because everyone else was doing. A little bit of peer pressure never hurt, and it was great. We had a great time together, and you forgot that you were helping someone and making someone's day a little bit better. So, I want to preface everything with, there were no iPhones when I went here, so these pictures are pretty terrible. But, just as a side note, these teachers that you have are going to change your life. You're not going to realize it for a little while, probably, but they challenge you every day you're here. They expect so much out of you until you start to do the same for yourself. I will always have Mr. Foley, Mr. Havens, Mrs. DeMarco, and Mrs. Doran stuck in my head. They're my subconscious, and when I just forget about everything, they're always there telling me, is this really what you want to do? Is this really the best decision for you? And you may not realize it now, like I said, but they're going to be stuck in your head, so get used to them. And also, these teachers motivated me to look for cool opportunities, to learn and to serve. It wasn't just about going to soup kitchens in the area, which is a huge deal, but I wanted to go beyond that. I wanted to see what other communities looked like. And so I found the National Youth Leadership Forum on Medicine, and with the support of my teachers, got in, wrote an essay, and went to Washington, D.C. Here, we worked in clinics. We worked in all sorts of levels of clinics. And I didn't realize, it's kind of funny to look back now, because now I'm in medicine and I realize it was right there in front of my face, but it took me 7 more years to figure it out. But it was there. Worked in clinics, learned from the top physicians in Washington, D.C. and in Johns Hopkins. And we worked to educate the community on battling heart disease. And we did this by raising money and making sure that we had sustainable programs in place to maintain the education and try to trickle that down so that in the end we wouldn't have to do the education, that it would be part of family life, it would be part of the community. So this was a fantastic experience, one that I didn't expect to have, and thought I was done, but then decided for another opportunity that St. Luke's provided, Outward Bound. I know it sounds crazy, but they had this posting all over the school, and I thought, I got to apply. Why not? It's free, and it's 2 weeks of my summer. So this is a 2-week trip. It's backpacking and canoeing. You're totally out in the middle of nowhere in Maine. And that's when you start to figure out things are pretty lonely out there. And they send you on something called a solo, which is 2 days where they put you in the middle of the woods alone with food and water. Like, they didn't totally torture us. Put us out in the middle of the woods, and you had to be there alone for 2 days. You had to figure out how to make a tent out of a tarp, and you had to sleep on the ground in your sleeping bag, and you had to think. It kind of was the weirdest experience of my life. But anyway, they made us write a letter to ourselves with no prompt at all. You just kind of had to write. And I think I was a bit delusional by this point because I was in a very sunny area, kind of ran out of water quickly, but I wrote this note, and it was all about what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be in the future. And a year later, they sent us those letters, and we got to reread them, and it was amazing. The same person I wanted to be was that new person reading the letter that I wrote, and it changed my life. And I still think about that letter and kind of think, if I had to tell myself something a year from now, what would I tell myself? And normally it's you got to step it up or something like that. But mostly it's just being reflective and being introspective about what's going on in your life. Also, at the end of this program, just a side note, we did Habitat for Humanity for 3 days, which I feel like everybody should do at least once, because it's such a literal translation of service. It's working with your hands, and you're seeing your impact instantly. It's like instant gratification. Everyone should do it, and there's so many opportunities to do it. This time was in Bridgeport, so it's close by. You should check it out. And then you're done with St. Luke's, and it's time to figure out what to do with your life, which is really scary, because you're in this beautiful bubble here with your supportive, very hard teachers, and they want the best for you, so they're going to push you. I'm still friends with all of these girls and see them on a regular basis, actually, and we've grown together as a result. So it's time to think about college. I was completely addicted to volunteering and working with others, so I took our school motto very literally. I thought, I love service, I should serve, serving sounds fun, military. And I decided to apply to the Coast Guard Academy because it's the only branch that's dedicated solely to helping people. And it seemed like the perfect step toward a life I could be proud of. I applied and was accepted. I was pumped. This was it. I'm going to be a rock star and give back. I went to boot camp the summer before to just kind of get a look into what my potential lifestyle was going to be. I got to know some of the cadets, and finally, after a whole year, got my parents to agree to let me go. And I was all set to sign the papers, to sign 9 years away. And I couldn't do it. I was holding the pen, I had this awesome contract in front of me, and I couldn't stop thinking, was this enough? Was this the right opportunity? Did they have all the choices I wanted? And although I would look pretty badass in that uniform, it's not exactly what I should be doing with my life. So I couldn't commit. I looked to all my teachers and found Mrs. Doran and Mrs. DeMarco staring right back at me. They knew I wasn't sure, but they dug very deep into what I was feeling. I wasn't even able to articulate it then, but they gave me the permission to not go, to look for another opportunity. And I'm forever grateful for that. They told me, it's not for you, get over it and find something else. So I did, and I found Gettysburg College. It had a great science program, which I kind of was veering towards, and a center for public service. What I found was Gettysburg College, and although it was the safe choice and very familiar to me and a lot like St. Luke's and New Canaan, they had a lot of opportunities, just like New Canaan, and it was comfortable to me. It was something I knew. So I did a complete 180 from Coast Guard, and I went. When I was there, I found many chances to volunteer, and through both the school and my sorority that I joined, because again, social service, it totally works. And yet, I started to realize that I needed a bigger challenge. I needed something that would make me step so far out of my comfort zone that I would be scared. I wanted to be terrified. And while the process wasn't easy, I was able to attain a grant from Gettysburg College's Center for Public Service to work as an intern in Masaka, Uganda for 3 months. This was it. This was what I was looking for. This is the experience that changed my life. It was marked as a social justice internship, but for 3 months, I was planning to live in a village 5 hours from the capital with a family I didn't know, an intern at an organization called Tuchovu Mobile AIDS Organization. In order to do this, I needed a crash course in language and culture and how not to get sick. And honestly, that didn't work. There's a little bout of malaria there, but you keep going. And let's just say I was terrified the whole time. And this by no means that you need to go to Uganda to figure this out, to have your aha moment, because that is not for everybody. It was barely for me. And it's what I needed, though. I wanted to sleep on dirt floors and try to learn another language. I wanted to be so uncomfortable and immersed that I figured out who I was at the core. Because again, if I didn't know who I was, who am I to say that I can help anybody else? So my days consisted of waking up at dawn and doing chores with my host sisters. My parents were very strict there, my host parents. It was ridiculous. You walk 45 minutes to the clinic and pack a truck with medical supplies and food. And what I loved most about this organization was that it was operated solely by Ugandans, which meant I was privy to the actual issues in each community that we were able to visit, not the ones that were superimposed by outside organizations or outside organizations that provided funds. This was on the ground, issue-seeking community members. Their mission was to deliver healthcare services and medications to the most remote villages in the area. They fund schooling for HIV-positive orphans and provided prevalent medical education for each individual community. This meant getting to know the community. You can't assume that one problem in one area is going to fit another, because that's not the case. They have different resources, different knowledge base, and different funding. So we would go into these communities and find the elders, people that were dedicated to the community and wanted to find the areas that were needing improvement and work on those alongside. So they were our partners in working in these communities. They helped us identify problems and where it was needed most, where the help was needed most. Even if that meant there was one family that has been giving back over and over to the community and they're kind of down on their luck right now, we would help them. We would tailor our funds and resources to that family because we knew they would pay it forward to the rest of the community. But the first day I walked into the organization after all of my language training, it was like awful, I was able to work with these amazing individuals to identify where holes existed in their organization. When I started that first day, my supervisor sat me down, and half in Ugandan and half in English, told me I needed to create a project of my choosing. I had to submit a work plan and a budget to a panel of the highest members of the company and implement the program within 10 weeks. So I was officially out of the comfort zone. I had no idea what was going on. I'd never written a budget, what's a business plan, and who's a panel. I have no idea what was going on. But I got to work, because what else are you going to do? And I found a group of HIV-positive orphans, ages 10 to 17, spread through 3 different districts that we were visiting. They were lacking funds for shoes, food, and school supplies. I'd initially met these children when I was working with one of our outreach groups, providing education to them about sexual health and nutrition, which were the prevalent issues in that area, but we started to identify further issues that needed to be addressed. I got pretty close with the children to the point where I would walk them home every day. I would meet their family, and I would meet their brothers and sisters. But there was one family that changed everything, and it was 2 widowed women in their 70s, and they took in all the orphans of their community to their 1-bedroom house? I don't really know if you'd call it that, but to their 1-bedroom. They had 18 orphans living with them, and they never complained. They made it work. They didn't have the money. They slept on foam mats, as you'll actually see in a picture coming up. But it was these people that deserved help. They were working their butts off, and they needed a little support. So I worked with them, and we were able to develop a series of lectures on economic sustainability, where each group learned how to develop budgets and business plans, kind of like what I was trying to do. So I was learning along with them. I know giving lectures to 10 to 17-year-olds seems kind of crazy, but they were given by elders from the community that we recruited. It was from political figures in the area and from business owners from the main town about 2 hours away. They totally got into it, asking questions, taking notes, and by the last lecture, we had completely tripled in size. They would bring their friends, they would bring their family members, their parents. They were all taking notes. We had to take some money out of the budget to bring paper and pens and pencils so they could take notes because they were so into this, so dedicated to making their lives better. And if this meant they could do it by giving the supplies, they were going to do it. So after the lecture series was complete, they presented each of their plans for a profiting-generating craft that they intended to create and how they would use the money to buy both the things that they needed, those shoes, food, and school supplies, and replenish their supplies stock at the same time so they could, again, make a profit. We would then visit them every week after receiving the materials to see if they were actually doing it. So they had to be held accountable, and the organization is still doing that today. So this is one of the groups. We had about 6 groups about this size, and this was the day they all received the materials. So each of these groups were separated into further groups, usually with their friends. You can kind of tell by the materials. And we used our money, a grant that I was able to get from the Foundation for Sustainable Development in Masaka. So that's the larger town in the area. We were able to get money from them to fund the supplies. So we were able to give all of these supplies to these children so that they could create crafts, create a profit, and then regenerate their business again. So, Uganda was amazing. I learned so much. But there was definitely still time to learn how to make a basket with some of the kids that I met and to have a little fun. You can't not go crazy. So this is the Nile, and I didn't make one rapid. Not one. That's me right there. That's how it looked every time. But it was so much fun, and who gets to say the whitewater raft in the Nile? This is one of the weddings that I attended in the first week I arrived there, and they threw me in. I was apparently a bridesmaid. I had 4 outfit changes, and they handed me a mic in the middle of a 1,000-person wedding to give a grace in Lugandan. So I cracked the whole place up because I'm not exactly sure what I actually said in the end, but I made everyone happy, so that was really all I could ask for. And one of the biggest things I learned also is this is my host sister that I had. We were the same age. We fought, we shared clothes, we had the best time together, and we still keep in touch. We talk every day almost, we text. And she's about to get engaged, and I think I'm gonna go back for her wedding in a few years, so that should be very exciting. She's gonna get married to a Kenyan, so that's exciting, and she's very pumped. She's already picking out the wedding dress, and he hasn't even asked. So she and I are very close, and you just make these friends that last forever because she saw me at my most vulnerable. She saw me when I needed some help. And she's one of my best friends. But another major facet of my internship were the long drives to remote villages to prescribe and distribute medications to our HIV-positive patients. We came with hundreds of medications in our trunk in a big wooden box. It was like this makeshift pharmacy. And apparently, I was a pharmacist for 2 months. And which was crazy. And my job during these outings was to wait in the back of the truck, and where the nurses would come after consulting, the patients would come after consulting the local nurses. The nurses would write on little scraps of paper about how much medication each patient should get, give or take our supply. And then I had to find the med in the truck, put it into a little paper bag, and somehow give them directions how to take it in Lugandan. Again, they all laughed a lot, don't know what I said, but they got the medication, and I think they got the message. And I learned so much from the local nurses. During these outings, I saw the determination in their eyes to provide for each individual that would crowd our truck whenever I was there. And they were tireless. We would drive 6 hours to a really remote little area, and we'd be there from 11 to like 10 p.m. distributing all these meds, and we realized just an hour away is a village that we would have to drive 7 hours tomorrow if we don't go to today. So we would go there at 11 o'clock. Everyone would come out, and we would get home by like 3 a.m. But it was worth it. We were able to reach these people. We were able to make a difference. We were able to give them life-sustaining medication, and they were willing to take it, willing to take the education that we demanded they listen to before they got their medications. But it's a give and take, and the medications were free. Some people would give money if they could afford it, because they were so grateful for the service of getting these medications and the various education, and schooling sometimes paid for their children. So they would give like things equal to a penny if they had it. Anything extra they would give because they were so committed and so thankful for the services that the company offered. So I had gathered overwhelming amounts of motivation from Uganda, and I've been working my butt off ever since. And so I come back to this trip in my mind every once in a while to regain that motivation. And again, it's not for everybody, and it was a very unique experience being in the middle of nowhere and learning as much as I did. But I know you've heard the story of people going to Africa and like having a great experience, but it's up to what you want to do. It's up to what you think is going to allow you to get to know yourself the most, and therefore help other people the most. So, reluctantly, I had to go back to Gettysburg, and I graduated. My parents are actually here, so this is a shout out to them. Immediately started applying to nursing schools. I knew this is what I wanted to do. Didn't want to be a doctor, wanted to be a nurse. I wanted that patient contact. I wanted to know my patient better than anybody, and therefore help them the most. So I bulked up my course load, got a lot more volunteer work to look super marketable, and graduated from Gettysburg. I started an accelerated nursing program at the NYU School of Nursing that summer. So I had about 2 weeks off after I graduated and went right to school for a 15-month accelerated program. NYU was grueling. It was long hours and demanding professors, which you know about. And while the curriculum itself was very difficult, I didn't have any problems dedicating the hours needed to ace the tests and practicums because I loved what I was learning. I had the motivation behind me to actually want to be learning, to want to further my knowledge. And the motivation really came from wanting to go back to Uganda or go back to an area that's looking for medical aid and actually have the knowledge to do something about it instead of just standing there counting medications. I wanted to be able to do something, make a difference. So, now I am a nurse. I've graduated from NYU, and am now a nurse. That's a beautiful picture for all of you. It's a hospital selfie. But I get to wear my PJs to work, so that's the best part. I work as a medical intensive care unit nurse, so critical care. I'm in the thick of it. I'm as high as it goes for the highest acuity patients. Most of the patients that come to us are intubated, meaning they have a breathing tube breathing for them, or they're post-op from a very difficult surgery, or they just came up from a code from another floor. But now I get to spend my days with critically ill patients and their families, which sounds awful to most people, but I love it. I work long hours to get to know them best and tailor their care in an effort to maximize the possibility of positive outcomes. But on a floor like this, it's not always the case. We have a lot of patients that expire or pass away. And it's hard. It's very hard because you dedicate so much of your time, so much of your knowledge to try to make these patients better, but sometimes the body just gives up, and that's okay. It's natural. But it's learning how to speak with the family, how to get them through that. And again, I go back to the concept of knowing yourself. How do you feel? I mean, this is super morbid, but how do you feel about death? And you gotta know that to be able to help anyone else through it. So again, stripping yourself down to the core so you know who you are, and then you can give back fully, wholeheartedly, and uninhibited. So nursing is nowhere near glamorous, and it is definitely not for everyone. But sometimes, and when you're in the thick of it, it's not very pretty, but seeing your work directly impact another person's health is so rewarding. It's kind of like that Habitat for Humanity idea, but like medical world. You get to see exactly what your hands are doing. You get to make a difference right in front of you. This is short-term, aimed for long-term, but you get to see it right away. You get to see what your hands do. You get to work as a collaborative team with doctors, respiratory therapists, physical therapists, surgeons. You get to work with these people to tailor care for an individual. How lucky is that person? They get so much help, but how lucky are we that they're responding, that they're willing? It's amazing. So it gets you through the 12-hour shifts and some serious grossness. But yeah, NYU is very intense. This is what a normal patient will look like, if you can see it, kind of. It's kind of a normal patient, not super high acuity, but that's how many pumps you'll see on an easy day for a patient. This patient is actually intubated. I didn't want to show the face because it could be someone's relative. And they may be intubated, which means that we have a breathing tube in to breathe for them. And my days are a lot like episodes of Grey's Anatomy, running to codes, screaming orders, pushing meds. Doctors are definitely not as hot, but it's like it in every other way. And it's freaking cool. I love it. It's a rush. It's so much fun. But all the other moments, the moments that really make my profession worth it, I am with the patient, with the family, at the bedside, trying to help them through the scariest moments of their lives. And most of the time, those moments are nowhere near planned. It's always we were just walking, we were having the best time holding hands, and he just dropped to the floor. And that's the normal story. It's out of nowhere. And you make a fool out of yourself a lot in front of these people, but you're helping them every day through this. And I think it makes a difference. And a typical day, I'll just give you a quick little synopsis here. So last week, I had a patient who is encephalopathic, which means that her liver isn't able to filter out toxins in the body. So as a result, builds up in the bloodstream, and you go kind of wacko. Like, you're totally loopy, usually like trying to punch everything that moves. You're actually pretty crazy. But you know it's because of this issue that you're having with your liver. But somehow I developed a pretty close relationship with my encephalopathic patient, who, when I walked in the next morning after coming in from a shift before, I come in and everyone is crowded outside of her room and no one's inside her room. I'm like, what is going on? Like, come on, she's fine. Like, why is everyone standing out here? Just go on in. And apparently she had taken the whole night spitting on everyone who walked in the room. And so what do you do there? Like, I'm going to be her nurse today. I need to give her meds. I need to take labs. I need to hang bags for her IVs. I need to do tons of stuff. I got to prep her for surgery, actually, today. Like, that's hands-on stuff. And no one's allowed in the room. Nobody. Everyone's trying everything. Like, we'll give you chocolate. You know, like, we'll let you eat. All this kind of stuff. And it just wasn't working. So she knew me. And the family was even not allowed in there. But I kind of edged my way into the room and realized that she was singing everything she was feeling, from emotion to various symptoms, to the tune of Let It Be by the Beatles. Like, screaming it, like the whole place. It was stuck in our heads all day, like Let It Be the whole day. But I had to get in there and give her meds, because that's my job. So I had to sing back, and it was all day singing Let It Be back to her. I'm not going to do it for you now, but I had all the attendings, surgeons, everyone standing outside of the room, and I had to do like a full assessment, because that's what they would have done. Pre-op, they got to do a pre-op assessment, they got to tell her all this stuff, but I have to do it. So they're all telling me what to say, and then I have to sing it back to her. So I have the chief of cardiovascular surgery listening to me sing to this patient. So it was embarrassing, but it was great. She and I have a beautiful bond. She made it out of surgery. She's doing well. But that same day, about like 20 minutes after making the biggest fool of myself ever on my floor, and forever going to be the Beatles girl, we get the stomach drops. The whole room turns blue, and you see the flashing lights. It's a code. Full-on code that's usually like a cardiac arrest or something. We're going to start pumping the chest, pumping meds. Like, this is the cool stuff, right? It's the stuff you see in the movies. So we start running toward the code, the whole nursing team. We're going to start this. We got to do it like a well-oiled machine. Honestly, feel like we should have like Eye of the Tiger going on when these go on, just to motivate everyone over there. So we run. We're pumping the chest, pushing meds, getting everything done, and we get a rhythm. Patient survives, we do it. Literally 30 seconds later, another code. We run to that code, we save that person. 2 minutes later, we have respiratory distress in the back corner. We have to intubate that patient. We have to sedate them and put a breathing tube in. Again, we have another combative patient who just punched a nurse in the face, and we have to intubate him too. Craziest day. So it goes from singing a lovely tune with a patient to running around, sweating through your scrubs, like feeling so cool, like we saved everybody. And it was a great day. And you think back to Uganda, like, how did that happen? Like, you're in a world-class hospital learning how to go through a code. But that's where it starts. It starts from I got to learn somewhere, and then I'm going to go back where I can actually use that knowledge. But it was crazy. That's a normal day at NYU. And they survived, though, so you should refer anyone there that you want to do well. ICU is fantastic. But I am nowhere near done. Because of this school, because of my teachers here, I have the motivation that's going to carry me for years after this. So I want to keep stepping outside of that comfort zone and challenge myself every day like I did in Uganda, but in the States because I have family here. And I have joined the Medical Reserve Corps of New York City, and I'm working towards a certification in advanced cardiovascular life support, which will be super cool to have when I go back, and I can really know what I'm doing in those codes. And I want to reiterate again that I don't believe that serving is only exercised through volunteering or even nursing. I truly believe that you can make a difference just by being kind or warm-hearted to a person. I know that sounds corny again, like this whole thing, but really. So whatever career you choose, you can still make a difference by being an understanding person. Being positive and giving someone the benefit of the doubt can really change someone's day or possibly life in the end. So your life doesn't have to be about giving back. You don't have to work for an NGO or a nonprofit. You can do this in your daily life by just being a good person. And it's that easy. And you're learning how to do that here. That's what you are. You are great people. You're here. But again, it all started at St. Luke's. I took to heart this motto. I really did. I learned that you and I have the power and intelligence, and most importantly, the resources to develop a career focused on making a difference, however big or small that difference may be. And whether this means making a career around giving back or just being a kind person to everyone you meet, like I said, don't miss your opportunity to make a difference and make the world a little bit better of a place. So that's it. That's all I have to say. But I feel like I've learned so much, and if anybody has any questions, let me know. Probably don't.